Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. 30 plus years of coaching at the college level, I would imagine you have some daily habits that just set you up for success. So what are some of those things you've created over the years to you maximize your time?
I think I always like to work out. That's actually something. And it's not a great workout, but it's just some exercise is a good thing for me. I haven't got to it yet this morning. I'm out west, but that's something that I think as I've gone on more, I've continued to do. And I think that's a time for me to think and get away. And this could be a bike ride. It could be a weight room or elliptical. It's not much, but if I can get 45 minutes an hour, I just feel better. And I think that's big. Family is the other priority. And it's interesting. My kids are kind of going to college now, but one's come back to TCU, and my other one went away to Johns Hopkins. But she's been around a lot, so it's interesting. I thought we'd see less, and I almost feel like we're seeing more now that they're in college, and it's been great.
I think it's always a good sign when they want to come back and they want to be around. It means you did something right.
Well, as a coach, it's the time is it's so up and down, and weekends are not normal weekends, and it's a challenge at times. But I think they're more they've got that more less of a schedule as well, so I think they can make some of our events, and we can do some things at night. And so I don't know. It just seems to me that like we're around a lot more, and it's been fun.
I asked Mike Neighbors how he balances family and coaching, and he said, "Don't try. It's pointless to try." But the career that you've had and with your family, how have you been able to balance the two?
Well, probably I'm very lucky, and I've told my wife that we didn't have, as we were, I guess, dating. I don't even recall. We were in separate states for about 4 years.
Oh wow!
I know she was in Hawaii, but so we never had quite that normal relationship as far as courting. But since that time, once we got engaged and married, I was 17 years in Pittsburgh and now 7 years at TCU. So we've been very fortunate, and it's been great for our family. So we've been stable. Obviously, haven't had but just one move, and then obviously been at two great places. That the support's been amazing. The administration's been unbelievable, and so I've been lucky. I mean, I sometimes I tell her, like, I know you're a coach's wife, but you haven't really lived a true coach's wife's life as far as moving job to job. So once in a while, I'll remind her of that when she talks about me going on the road.
I'm sure that reminder goes over real well. She appreciates that.
Yeah. So we can say coach's wife, but two places in 25 years is
that's not bad.
It's not bad.
So you were a heck of a player, and I want to get into kind of returning to TCU in a little bit, and then got into the NBA a little bit with the Washington Bullets, which is incredible. The fact that you could even just sniff that level really puts you in elite company. And I was so far from that. Just some of those habits that you have with working out and staying active now, do you think it comes from that playing background that you have?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I said the other day, talking about to a couple of the players and and their futures and trying to play at the next level. I was like, you can play as long as you can, and if I could play today and go play somewhere, I'd do that and get at stop coaching. But obviously that decision was made for me 30 years ago. So Yeah, I loved it, and loved playing. I loved the challenge. I was kind of always the underdog. I was actually with four of my high school buddies that I played with last night as I was seeing my dad, and we watched a Laker game like old days. But I was always an underdog. I was a late bloomer. I grew a foot in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, I was hardly played my junior year, and just kind of have always kind of battled. Got a last minute scholarship to TCU, and came there as the 15th man, and just as guys left and I got better, and then I became, then all of a sudden, getting drafted was like the furthest thing from my mind when I was begging for a scholarship 4 years earlier. But I kept getting better, and I got better after college. I was still growing, filling out. So I had a kind of a different career. But I was fortunate. I got hurt playing in Holland.
Hmm.
And I say I was fortunate because it made me stop and get into coaching, because I might have continued playing, and I was at a decent level, making decent living out of it, good. But I wouldn't have liked to start getting into coaching at 30, and that was kind of the direction I was heading. I'm the only guy that is fond of a 3 month stay in the hospital. It did get me on my path, and that's how I got a job at UC Santa Barbara as a graduate assistant. A couple months later. So, but I knew what I wanted to do, and that's I was fortunate. I've always been fortunate in that I knew what I loved, and
Yeah.
I was going to find a way to stay in that business. And I wanted to be in sports. Basketball became the one, and I was able to find a way.
I think sometimes when you play at the level that you did, when you get into coaching, you're still watching and looking at the game through players' eyes and maybe thinking about more of the way that you would have done it. Was there a time, do you still do that, view it
Mm-hmm.
like a player? Or was there a time where you felt like, okay, I've switched over now to where I'm not viewing the game in how I would do things, but trying to help them really with how they should do things?
Yeah, I always see it through. I think a player's eyes. My teams have always been. Uh, I grew up as a point guard, a passer that couldn't shoot. Eventually, I became a good shooter. Last year of high school. But our teams have always been like high assists, known for their unselfishness. And I think that's just reflect what kind of how I was raised, really by my dad, and how we looked at the game, of how unselfishness and pass first guys. I mean, we have a guy like Damian Ball, like he loves to get assists. Alex Robinson was a local guy; he loved to get assists, and that was that stuff. I think still is with me. I've obviously evolved and changed what we do, but at the core of it, unselfishness is who we want to be.
And I would imagine playing for you that because you celebrate that and you get because everybody celebrates the leading scorer, the guys that can do so much that way. But when you're celebrating those attributes like the one mores and being unselfish and giving up a good one to get a great one, yeah, like you said, I would imagine it just kind of snowballs and they want to please you in that way.
Yeah, I think, and it's almost to a fault sometimes. I find that maybe like after a press conference, and after a game in a press conference, I know, or when we talk to the team, I'll always point out the high assist guy, the guy that did the rebounding, the guy that maybe didn't show up in the points and the stats, and I'll even talk at a press conference. I find myself sometimes I won't even mention the guy that had like 25 points, because I'll be pointing to these other things, and that's how we coach at practice too. It's always great screen, great dive to get somebody else open. Great extra pass. Like we won't even talk about the assist, but the pass that leads to the assist,
Right.
and compliment that guy. So I think at times I almost do it to a fault of, I'll forget a guy that, don't mention a guy and by the way, he had 25, I mean, and to a thing, but I think everybody else takes care of that. That's my belief. The media, the social media, the box score. So I really want to reflect on and compliment the guy that maybe goes a little bit more unnoticed by some, and that's in practice. That's in a huddle. That's in a game, and that's in a press conference.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.